Hello world, I'm Headmist, and today I'll be showing you how to make the pad from my remix of You and What the Army Is Into Your Eyes. And the pad we'll be making should sound like this. And it's really just this pad with a slight tremolo effect on it. And as you can see, it's used a lot through the song actually. So yeah, let's get to it. I'm in Reason 4, as you might have seen, and so yeah, everything from that and above should work. Press F8 to bring up the tool window. I really like to use this. So we're going to start out with a combinator and a line mixer. And to the line mixer, just add a Thor. We're going to start out with a Thor. This is already initialized, but you can right click and choose initialized patch if it's not. Then bring in another analog oscillator and set both of them to sine waves and run both through. Take one an octave up, so you have one an octave 5 and one octave 4. At the moment it's this basic sine synth, but we're going to make it more interesting by adding an FM pair. When I work with FM pairs, I generally just play around with different settings till I find something that I like. And in this case I found that a carrier of 4 and a mod of 5 just adds this high end to it and make it that much better. You can add some chorus, just dial in a little bit, dry whack to like a quarter of the way up, like 20 or something, and take the sustain a little bit up, not all the way because we want it to hit and then fade a little bit out, but we don't want it to be too low after it hits. And the last thing we're going to do inside of Thor is to add a tremolo effect to this. And the way we're going to do that is to take the LFO1 and route it to amp gain. So turn key and tempo sync on, and then set the rate to 3/16, which is a great rate for tremolo effects since it's kind of offbeat. Then in the routing section, set LFO1 as the source and the destination to amp gain with an amount of just underneath 70, 68 or something. If you listen to it now, it have this tremolo sound to it, which is nice. But we're not done yet. Let's bring in an equalizer and brighten it up a little bit. So first of all, turn on low shelf and set the frequency to about 100 Hz, so it starts to cut there. Then turn the Q all the way down so we get this nice slope instead of this peak here. Turn the gain to like -10 or something. And with the high shelf, turn the frequency all the way down so it starts to go up really early. And then the Q all the way down, and with a gain of 3, around 2 or 3. And now it's much brighter and it sounds much nicer actually. Next thing we're going to do is to add a maximizer to this, because at the moment this is really loud. And if you see, the limiter is actually kicking in already, which kind of works against the tremolo effect, so we have to turn it down a little bit. So take the input gain down 10 dB or something. And if you look at the screen now, you can see it's a much more normal level for a pad to be. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to widen the sound, and the way we're going to do that is to delay one of the channels by a little bit. So taking a Spider Audio Merged and Splitter and a DLL1 digital delay line. Hold shift while I drag them in because we want to connect them ourselves. Then disconnect the maximizer from the mixer and take the output into the splitter. I'm just going to name this L and this other one R. And take one of the input, one of the splitted outputs, into the mixer, and another output into the delay, and back into the mixer. So in the mixer you see you have both signals in now. Then in this delay line, turn to milliseconds, not steps, and bring it a lot down to around 10 milliseconds. Turn the feedback right down to 0 so it only repeats one time, and the dry wet should be all the way up to wet. So just to recap what we've done here, we have taken the signal and split it, so we have one signal into the mixer and we have another signal that is delayed 10 milliseconds. So this unit now works more of a delay than an echo. You know, it just hits one time, 10 milliseconds after the original signal. So in the mixer, pan those hard left and right, and if you listen to the sound now, it's much wider. For some reason, the delayed signal here is much louder than the original. So if you look up on the mixer, you can see that the right channel is much louder than the left, so you can just use the mixer to kind of balance it. You can just use this as a reference and then do it by ear actually. It doesn't have to be very precise, but just bring it down. In this case I found that a level of 100 and around 80 is great. Now it's balanced. So we're going to do one more thing before we're done with the patch, and that is to add another Thor. We're going to layer some sounds. We're not going to make our own patch from scratch this time, we're just going to bring in a preset. So click Browse Patch, and we're in the recent factory sound bank, and search up animated pad. And yeah, there it is. And if I solo it out, you can hear that this is not exactly what we want. It's this slow evolving pad, but we're going to do something about it, and it's going to be great. So open it up, and this is a lot of things. I'm not going to get into all of this, but first of all, we're going to take the attack and release in the amp envelope to 0, so it's more of a static pad. And the last thing we're going to do is to take the texture knob all the way up. Just listen to what happens with the sound. I'm going to do that. It's kind of more of a Rhodes-like sound now than it was before. That's the only way I can describe it. You might have noticed that this pad is much lower than the other. It's actually 1 octave lower than the other one. Let's just say I'm hitting the same note on my keyboard, but it's different tones. So we're gonna sort that out in the programmer of the combinator. So click on Thor 2, which is the Thor we just created, and down here it says transpose, and bring that up to 12, and that is exactly 1 octave up, 12 semitones. So now you can hear that the Thor number 2 is right where the other pad's at. So yeah, that is basically the pad. You can add some reverb to it to make it sound less dry. The first hole preset is great for pads. Hole reverbs in general are great for pads. So just bring in some reverb. You can actually do a lot of reverb on pads. You can't do a lot of reverb on a bass or a drum. In some cases you can't do reverb on them at all because it would just sound muddy. But you can do a lot of reverbs on pads and it still sounds okay. So yeah, that is basically the whole patch. Head mist out.